maybe
he was responsible for it being on the air. He's also responsible for why it's not on the air.
Alright, folks, and we're back to the Mudita PRpHD podcast. We got something very special for you today. Usually we cover movies, but this time we're covering the behind the scenes of movies, right, PRpHD?
That's correct. And it is a small world after all.
It is a small world after all. Oh yeah, also I should say I'm Mudita and this is
PRpHD.
And and we're talking about the behind the scenes of one of the studios we talked about a lot on our podcast and many of our streams and stuff like that. The company Disney, and I forgot how I phrased that. I kind of lost.
No, you got it right. Yeah.
Did I get that right?
You got it right. Yeah.
But anyway, behind the scenes of one of our favorite companies, Disney, that we like to both criticize. One of our favorite companies to like follow and maybe criticize also.
Great empire.
Big empire. Now it started off as the rebellion, became the empire. And started off as a small startup in Hollywood,
I guess
like 100 years ago.
It was animation before big animation.
Yeah, it was an anime studio, and then became this big multi-billion-dollar behemoth. And we're gonna follow this book called The Ride of a Lifetime, which follows the 15 years of Bob Iger as CEO of Disney. Up until 2019 is when this book came out.
15 years. Also, I guess they say ride because of the theme parks, even though this doesn't really make sense that wise, but we're going to do it in a bit.
Yeah, and we're going to go over the general timeline of what they cover in the book, but like this is generally what they own is, this huge empire of stuff here. Yeah. Like movies, TV studios, merchandise, music, theme parks, experiences, consumer products, Marvel, 20th Century Fox, Star Wars, National Geographic, ESPN, Disney ABC, Disney Theatrical, just tons and tons of stuff.
Theatrical too, I don't know that. I guess they don't own Disney on Ice.
Or they have like some, I don't know, I don't know how it works exactly. It's too much to get into at this point. It's kind of beyond the scope of things at this point. But the main thing we want to focus on is this man, his the things that happened under his tenure, as according to his book. And one thing we'll say before we even start this review of the book is that all this is being told from the perspective of like how they say it in the book, and like we don't actually know how these things actually went down. It could have been like phrased a certain way in the book. We don't know. I've never met the guy. I've never met anyone who's met the guy. So like, we're just going to take the book as is, and we're just going to like mention how they're saying stuff in the book as they're saying
That said, it was very interesting that like when I joined the Disney company, it was around the time he started,
Yeah, and it was an interesting time when he joined because like there was a lot of transition happening. There was a recession happening.
The theme parks were doing very well though.
Yeah.
They were buying Pixar and everything.
Yeah, it was a lot of their like major acquisitions was like a big turning point for the company. And they did like a lot of their key major acquisitions. And if you just see this timeline here that we're going to go over for what happens in the book, like he joins the company after joining from ABC, as we're going to discuss. And then after Disney merges with ABC, under Iger, they do several major acquisitions. They acquire Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars / Lucasfilm, and I guess that includes Indiana Jones as well. Also Fox, also launching Disney Plus as a platform for their direct-to-consumer streaming app, entering the streaming wars, and also some social upheaval with like metoo and Roseanne and other things like that. So. Yeah, we're going to discuss a lot of things under this guy's career, and very prominent businessman, and also like how they pitch him in the book as like they portray him as like someone who like tries to run things with with a sensitive touch, and like how he uses emotional intelligence is how they try to describe him as doing things. But I don't know, it's a book, so like they want to put things in the most positive light as possible. So. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess are we ready to begin?
Yeah, we're ready. Yeah.
So yeah, wow, we're 5 minutes into this, and that's enough of a wind up. Let's start talking about it. So let's just start about the. I guess we could start with the Hook.
Yeah, not Hook the movie. They do talk about Hook the movie in the book very briefly.
Yeah, we could talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the hook for this book,
the prologue
that like reels you in is like it starts at a very critical moment in his career, where like it's like he's been CEO for a while. He's launching this big project. I believe is it Shanghai Disneyland?
I believe so, yeah.
It's like one of the major Disney parks in China. It's Shanghai Disneyland.
Yeah, Hong Kong was
not
a
Hong
lot
Kong.
earlier, yeah.
Hong Kong was...
You want to do Hong Kong after Shanghai, yeah.
So yeah, they did Shanghai Disneyland. He's been spending many years on it. They're launching the park. It's got to be this big thing. They have government officials showing up. And then while that's happening...
Yeah, he's talking to like... the premier and the ambassador and all that stuff.
Of like Shanghai and like China and stuff like that. There's all these prominent figureheads. It's gonna be a big deal, and they spent like over a decade working on this, I believe, a very long time.
Yeah.
But then he gets a phone call from like people in Florida. He's like, "Oh, this. I wonder what this is about. Might be important."
Yeah.
And he hears about Pulse nightclub.
Yeah.
And if you don't remember that was when there was like a shooter who shot up a nightclub for LGBTQ folks in Orlando, Florida. And like people still remember it to this day, and very tragic. And like, yeah, they're like, wow, he's doing the math in his head. Like, do we have any employees there? Do we know who was involved? And like, yeah, several employees were there, and some of them were.
The shooter actually went to the parks, which I don't know. It's Orlando. Everyone goes to the parks.
Yeah, the shooter was like looking for a high priority target, and it turned out that they had went to like I believe downtown Disney.
Yeah.
But like because there was an event going on there, and there was heightened security, they just walked away, and then they just started Google mapping or something. Like other places to go, and they just like found like boom, I'm gonna go to Pulse nightclub instead. So that was like horrifying. That's like a near miss, and yeah.
Catch your breath, everybody. Sorry about the stressful.
So he's navigating this while navigating Shanghai Disneyland.
And he's talking about the 20 different execs he has to talk to in the middle of all this.
And he also has to put on a good face for the audience. He decides like, okay, I'm just gonna temper my emotions, and like just for the sake of like making sure things go well, I'm not gonna bring this up and like not let this get to me. Like this is my job.
The toughest part of his entire career.
Yeah, toughest part of his career. And then on top of that, he gets another phone call from the head of Disney Parks and Resorts and Experiences. He gets a phone call from Bob Chapek at the time, who's the head of Parks and Experiences and Resorts. Bob Chapek, who would later become CEO under mixed circumstances, but like Bob Chapek gave him a phone call and said, "Oh, there's been tragic news. Like a small child
at the
resorts has gotten killed by an alligator." And like the family, they're like, he's like, wow, how do we handle this? Like, it's like, and like the way Bob Iger said he would handle it, he says, okay, we're supposed to go through publicity, we're supposed to have a press release, we're supposed to like handle this in a way that's like we're just covering our asses here. But like, he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna do something that like I just feel like as a parent with children, like what would I want if this happened to me? I'm gonna call them personally and just like have a personal phone call with them and see. And he said he calls them up. He's like, put me in touch with them. I want to see if there's anything I could do. He's like, hey, are you the family? I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm a parent. Is there anything I could do in this situation that could help you? What do you guys want? And like, he's really opening himself up. He's like being vulnerable at that point. He's like, they could have asked for like money or something, but like they just said like, we just don't want this to ever happen again to any other child and any other person.
That's sort of hard to promise.
It is really tough, yeah. But
with it's a swampland, so there's a lot of snakes and like alligators everywhere.
Yeah, but
I also don't think this is the only time that's happened. Also,
right. So it's really hard to like prevent 100%, but like ultimately, like, what they do is like, okay, we're gonna do our best. We're gonna work on this right away. He talks to Bob Chapek. Bob Chapek says within 24 hours, they already have like lines and fences and like warning signs saying like, do not cross these parts, might be dangerous because they might have alligators.
Okay.
So they handle that really quickly and efficiently, and like, you know, use the full resources of the company to like prioritize that. And
signs are very important.
And like, yeah, it like, I mean, like, it helps with liability, but it also like, it gives the family what they want, and it also like shows responsibility as a leader, and it signals to like, you know, your customers that like you care about the humanity of people. So like, you know, like they're ultimately responding in a way that's that like you could say is very humane, and involves a lot of emotional empathy. And he's also navigating this all in the back of his mind, like, wow, holy shit, like some crazy thing just happened, while he's like trying to launch a park that he spent like a decade working on. So. So that's how he starts off the book.
Yeah.
And yeah, you should read it for yourself. It's quite riveting. All the details are really great too. And yeah, like that's showing like how he's navigating both a critical, I don't know, point in his career that's like a big accomplishment, which is the parks, but also these crisis points that are also happening at the same time, and how he navigated them, and like what made him to be that person that day, and like everything that happened before and after that moment in his career. So yeah, those moments can really make or break somebody's career, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, that's like the hook. And
should we take a break here?
And then pretty much after that, he goes through his life chronologically, in chronological order, from like his family life to like his career before Disney at ABC, to Capital Cities, and then the acquisition of ABC, and him joining Disney and his tenure at Disney, doing all the acquisitions and launching big things. So yeah, maybe we should take a quick break, and then when we're back, we'll do part 2, and then we'll continue with his full career, I guess, and a
15 years.
Yeah, 15 years, no problem.
It was we'll
do it very briefly.
I guess it covers more than 15 years because like it covers like 40 years because like the stuff before he was CEO also.
Yeah. We don't want to spoil any like the whole book for you, but we'll just talk about a few nice highlights and stuff like that. Yeah. And like ultimately read the book yourselves. Like get it from a library.
Very educational.
Buy a copy. I don't know. He's gonna be fine money wise, I guess.
Yeah.
But
he's already a New York Times bestseller.
It's a New York Times bestseller.
On top of the New York Times and his autobiography.
On top of him, like already being a CEO, he's a New York Times bestseller. Yeah. And
one of the perks of being a known CEO.
Yeah, known CEO that like you know, is public facing and like people like talking to, and like, you know, wearing merchandise for his company and stuff, and having fun, like running a big notable company where like, you know, the first movie you watched in theaters was Cinderella and whatnot. So it's it seems like ride of a lifetime. It's a fun thing. So yeah, we'll be back after this break, and we'll continue with the rest of Bob Iger's Ride of a Lifetime. Take care. Peace. This is Mudita. We're back from the break. Hope you had a nice rest. I don't know, whatever. We're continuing Ride of a Lifetime, the autobiography of Bob Iger, CEO of Walt Disney Company for 15 years, until his book released in 2019 before COVID, and then since then he's become CEO again. And the ride of a lifetime indeed. Just before we talked about the intro and the initial hook of the book, now we're just going to talk about, kind of like casually, about the different parts of his career chronologically, how things led up to certain moments, and like maybe just kind of jump around a little bit. We're going to keep it a little loose because like we don't want to just spoil the whole book for you. We wanted to keep it nice and fun for you to read the book yourselves, but we're gonna keep a general chronological order here as the baseline.
after we get to the acquisitions, we don't need to worry about chronological order.
Yeah, because you kind of know what we're talking about. Because
the chronological order doesn't really matter for that. Yeah. It's like all the same topic, basically, just different chapters.
Yeah, just the general baseline we'll set right now, so you know how to orient yourselves when you're when we're thinking about his career. It's like there's like his early life, then his career at ABC, then his career as like joining Disney, becoming Disney CEO, and then all the acquisitions of Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, Fox, and then launching Disney Plus.
Yeah,
and there's probably other stuff too. Yeah. I think they acquired Muppets.
That was during Eisner.
That was during Eisner. Oh shoot. Okay. Oh. So never mind about that. But yeah, his key acquisitions were Pixar.
I would even
Marvel,
say like
Star
probably
Wars,
Chapek did more for the Muppets than Iger did even.
Oh really? Okay, well then we don't have. Okay, we don't have to get into it. Okay, we want to respect your time here. Okay, we could go on forever about Chapek and Muppets and other things there, but
the Muppet CEO.
Yeah, whatever. Muppetational. All right. They talk about his family life. That had a profound influence on him. As how
everyone
how he conducted himself.
Everyone lives different lives, so like he had his own background.
Yeah.
I guess he was from New York.
Yeah.
The main thing I like to say, like how he got his position in journalism, like a lot of people can't go that path because like there's a lot. You can't just hand people your resume now. Like they like cattle call you and like weed you out and stuff now. Like it's really hard to get those positions now, even if you're in New York.
Yeah. So his family had their fair share of like mental health struggles and stuff like that. So how he processed that kind of informed how he conducted himself in the future, like how he processed like difficult emotions. And then his father was someone who also worked in Hollywood for a while, and just through him he was able to get his initial positions in in Hollywood studios and stuff like that. So that's like kind of setting up the rest of the book. And he wanted to work in that system. I think he generally joined ABC, was doing like internship stuff for a while. There was even like some harassment he faced.
Oh wow.
I don't know if you remember that part.
I remember, no.
Like I think he was just like a man exposed himself to him as while he was an intern. That was a really weird part of the book. But he said he was like this was like he had no power, and like he felt like it was a very male oriented industry where there was no consequences, and like he never forgot that, and he tried to like make sure that like he didn't contribute to the problem in his career and stuff like that in the future. So, and that does come up later in the book too.
I did talk to some journalists about stuff like that before. There's a lot of Barbara Walters had it really tough.
Yeah. Hollywood's
and even the guys they would admit that wow, we were terrible.
Yeah, Hollywood's a tough system. Was very boys club. But not in a good way kind of thing. But he did get his start. There were good moments though. Like he did get his start doing a lot of cool gigs. Like he met Frank Sinatra. He covered
at MSG for the what do you call it? The main event.
Yeah, and they helped cover a bunch of cool events at the Olympics, like the Jamaican bobsled team, which would go on to inspire cool run-ins.
A Disney product
at Disney,
ABC and Disney. Yeah.
And
I don't know. They might have made a doc on it. I don't know. And recently, the Jamaican bobsled team came back again for the Olympics.
Yeah.
Oh.
And what else? And also he learned from there's a mentor figure he had while working on ABC Sports and
what's
for
the
the
name,
Olympics.
Ted or something?
I forgot the guy's name.
It was a very easy name to remember. I don't know if he went by his last name or he just named by the first name.
He was a really tough guy. He was really tough on his workers, but he had this the way Iger put it, he just really strove for perfection and stuff like that. So he held people to a very high standard, and and it pushed people to like do things better and better and better. So
Yeah.
he never forgot that. That was one of his key lessons. And he also covered like a North Korean sports event also on ABC Sports.
Yeah.
And then later, like seeing how he conducted himself and like kept his cool in like tough situations, he ended up working as the head of ABC programming. Of course, like a big highlight there for PRpHD is I don't know if we talk about it much, but like on this stream, but like a big highlight for PRpHD is his handling of Twin Peaks.
And if you're a fan of Twin Peaks, you're wondering what did he do wrong?
Yeah, so
this is not the Showtime
we-
version. This is the ABC version.
yeah, the original series, and
the first 2 seasons. Yeah.
and like Twin Peaks got huge amounts of praise when it came out. Like it got respect from Hollywood, it got respect from directors like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas at the time, and it helped like him build connections.
Book, yeah.
And like it was like a really big deal. But then, like, maybe...
He was responsible for it being on the air. He's also responsible for why it's not on the air.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then, like, also, like, with his, like, with that working as a strategy for him, like, being bold, making bold decisions, he went on to make some other things after that, including, like, Cop Rock, which was, like, a cop musical and stuff like that, which, like, a lot of people hated. And also NYPD Blue, you can read about the stories behind that. And then also Drew Carey's show, that's a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
I've never talked about that on the stream.
He doesn't remember,
that's
he
where
didn't
they were
remember
whole
it
stream
was in
by
the
itself.
book.
I didn't remember it was in the book, and I love Drew Carey's
It's only
show.
a line. I don't even know he's responsible for it, but like
Yeah.
he mentioned, like it was like one of the standout shows that you
I
could remember. I guess
I
on
do
ABC.
remember that. I remember Michael Eisner having no idea what Whose Line Is It Anyway was. I remember hearing that back in the day.
I like they would have a Drew Carey show on in the parks even. Yeah.
Yeah, and like
Sounds dangerous.
like they were launching like some Drew Carey show stuff in the parks.
You can't see Drew Carey.
And Michael Eisner was meeting them. He's like, "Who are you guys again?" It's like we're launching stuff in your parks, and like
they even showed up in Superstar Limo for promotion stuff.
yeah. There's like a fun footage that we saw in like a Defunctland episode.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Defunctland.
Yeah.
Where like they're way more popular than us,
Yeah.
but like yeah, everybody should watch Defunctland.
Yeah.
Very good coverage of like a defunct Disney theme park attractions and whatnot and beyond.
Huh.
And in their episode on Superstar Limo, you actually saw footage of like Drew Carey and like Drew Carey show cast members promoting Superstar Limo in the theme parks and stuff in promotional footage, and it was very, very funny. Check out the Superstar Limo episode of Defunctland. Let me see what else. And then ABC, of course, got acquired by Capital Cities, which if you're interested in the business world, they had really great leadership, according to people like Warren Buffett, and to that alone was like a big selling point for Warren Buffett to make a big investment in Capital Cities. So like when that happened, that was like a big deal in the investing world.
I mean, later on he would invest in Disney, right? Or was he already doing it?
Yeah, when Disney would end up acquiring ABC Capital Cities, Warren Buffett was present, and like he makes a cameo in this book with so like I feel it's almost as if
As a character?
as a character. It's almost as if there's like a moment where like there's Michael Eisner standing there, and then like Bob Iger standing there. And then Warren Buffett is standing there, and I don't know why I pictured it in a parking lot for some reason. I forget why, but yeah. So they're all making this deal. I don't know why exactly.
Oh, like
just like
King of the Hill. Or...
Yeah, I don't know. King of the Hill or something like. Oh, yep. But yeah. So that's like this meeting of worlds, and like also I'm working my way through Warren Buffett's biography, The Snowball, also, so you can keep an eye out for that too.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this book was much easier to read than The Snowball, so I got through this book a lot faster.
It's a very easy book to read. He doesn't He doesn't write anything too long.
Yeah.
Nothing overstays his welcome in the book.
Yeah, they made it a very readable book. I mean, I think, also for...
Like, a lot of the notes we have on here, most of it he only talks about for, one sentence.
Yeah, I do wonder, how much of that is because, the core audience for a lot of this stuff might be older people.
It could be younger people, too.
It also could be younger people.
Yeah.
It could also be people interested in Disney who are younger people. It could also be people who are business people who just don't have a lot of time. They're like, I just want to know the gist of it here, Bob. Yeah. So, don't waste my time here. Yeah. How CEOs read executive summaries of reports and stuff, whole prospectuses of, companies' backgrounds and stuff like that. So yeah, they're very respectful of your time.
Also, they, cover, the highlights. So, some of the stuff here, they'll just be there just because, someone's going to ask about it, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, and it also makes sure they don't overstate things and get into so many details that they have to approve everything, and then they actually get themselves in hot water because it is a living company that
some of the stuff that is in the book. Yeah, you're wondering whatever. Yeah.
You're wondering okay, how many details are they leaving out and all that? Yeah. So that's gonna come with the territory.
Or maybe there's legal stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, or hey Bob, you can't publish that or whatever. And it's okay, let's just keep this short. So, and Disney's kind of notorious for being very stringent and it's a publicly traded company.
Was he still CEO at the time, or was it after he left?
Let me see. This was 2019, and 2019. Let's see, Bob Iger. Fox.
When did he leave?
Walt Disney Company. In 2019, he releases.
Oh, it was before he retired.
And then September 2019, he released his memoir. In 2020, he announced his intention to retire. And then February 25th of 2020, wow, what timing is that? February 25th, 2020, he announced the board of directors named Bob Chapek as CEO. And then in April, the board extended Iger's mandate until 2021 due to COVID-19. And then...
yeah, I always found that was a little fishy.
Yeah, honestly. So that's always weird. I don't know. I mean, they already knew COVID was happening in Asia by that point.
Yeah, I know.
So
way before in 2019.
But, I guess a lot of these things happen slowly. But
I don't know if they could have done anything about it if people would have listened, because it's people that end up listening anyway. But I don't know.
Who knows? Not me. Above my pay grade.
Yeah.
And then July 12th, 2023, Iger and Disney extend the contract until 2026. So he's back.
I'm back, baby.
What is that from again?
It's like George Costanza or something.
I'm back, baby. Didn't you leave, George? George Costanza. We love referencing Seinfeld, even though
it's a problematic show.
It's a problematic show, and it's really old too. And people on YouTube and Twitch probably don't even. They get the goofy little memes, but they don't actually watch the show. We barely watch the show at this point.
Yeah.
And then ABC got acquired. ABC Capital Cities got acquired by Disney, and
is there anything you want to talk about with the acquisitions, just so it's more natural than just going for the timeline? Because we don't really need to go for the timeline.
Well, what kind of stuff
I guess Black Panther.
Okay, stuff like that. I want to say something about the Disney merger, I guess.
Okay, go ahead, yeah.
I guess, what do I want to say about that?
I don't know if we talked much about it, but also, I don't think he was CEO at the time, but, yeah, it wasn't a big deal at the time, I think. I don't think it really blew Disney away that they bought ABC, other than, its history with the Disney company.
Yeah,
it wasn't, Marvel or something as big as that.
I guess, the main thing about that is this transition of this succession from Michael Eisner to Iger. Yeah. And, there's a whole sequence of events that happens then that's, so complicated that, it's impossible to repeat right now. But, it's very interesting how that plays out. And how, they portray Iger as, trying to play his hand properly, where he's I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers, but also, if this can happen, I would like it to. But, I don't want to, offend people or hurt people's feelings in a terrible way or anything like that.
He wanted to
intentionally or anything.
He wanted to become CEO, but he didn't want to like piss off Eisner at the same time.
Yeah, he wanted to be respectful. He didn't want to be like, hey, how's, like, when are you leaving? Or like, or like, hey, I want that seat or whatever.
It's very subtle. It's like it's sort of I picture it sort of as a Seinfeld thing, actually. Like, CEO, huh? Like,
well, if you know
if you're leaving, who's going to take your place?
Who are you thinking about? Well, if you know, let me know if you think of anybody. It's like, I don't know if there's anyone else for you.
I don't know if there's anyone else. Unlike a lot of people on YouTube, he says a lot more politically correct with what Eisner did right. Like, he had a good 10 years, and then he had a 21-year run.
And then, like, Eisner doesn't leave on great terms. Like, that's kind of publicly known outside of this book, too. Yeah. But, like, I think even then, Iger's still, still trying to do the right thing, too, even after Eisner's already left and all that.
I mean, like, now, like, I don't know if it was talked about in the book or if we talked about it, but, like, the board, no one knew who the successor for Disney was going to be, the Disney CEO. Like, they still have that problem now also, so, like, they still have to try and run the company, but, like, they never found a successor. So what are you supposed to do? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Succession, but for Disney. Like it's a very complicated process, and like you gotta look for people who look like a good fit, and like sometimes like I guess the person here is like the best fit, so we got to go with them. And even just now with like Bob Chapek, they were like, oh, maybe this guy's good, like he seems all right. And then like things didn't go well, shareholders were upset, so I don't know. Then they're like, okay, we'll bring back Iger again out of retirement, and like so. That's a really tricky. That's a really tricky thing. Like, how do you handle that in a way?
It's sort of like embarrassing too. Like it was like, oh, we made a mistake with this guy. We should have gotten rid of Iger.
Yeah, and that's and like people I mean, you can be like very critical of like, okay, like, when Bob Chapek doesn't do his job, he gets a big golden parachute. But like when an employee like makes a small mistake that like only affects an infinitesimal amount of money versus like a big CEO that costs billions of dollars or whatever, like the employee gets fired, but like Bob Chapek gets a big golden parachute. Feels like a double standard there is what people would say. That's like a fair enough statement that a lot of people would say. But it is also a tricky thing. Like, how do you actually handle that kind of situation? Like, if you actually don't know who's going to run a big company like that, and like if it's not being done by like a certain, like, I don't know, like if it's being done by a board of directors, how do you decide that? And like it's really tricky. And then there's all these people trying to acquire a company and gun for it, and like, oh yeah, we didn't even mention like Comcast. There was also like an attempt to acquire Disney a hostile takeover from Comcast at some point. We didn't even mention that. I think that's around this point of the timeline.
I don't know if it was in the book. I know Funkman knows about it.
Hostile takeover attempt. And then like this is also happening the same time as like when Eisner's sort of getting ousted, and like and there's a hostile attempt to oust Eisner from like Roy E. Disney and stuff like that.
So this is like they did it through buying the shares, I guess.
Yeah, there was like some, I don't remember exactly. There must have been something like that happening, but they ended up like blocking the attempt. Yeah, like they didn't get enough shareholder approval. So it was a very tough time for the company, and like
struggles bigger than time and stuff. DreamWorks.
Yeah, and like I
think it's sort of like Katzenberg and like
Spielberg, SKG Dream.
They're probably like thinking about doing this the whole time.
Yeah. So and that was like after the falling out with Eisner back in the day too. So yeah, but so it was very tricky for everybody.
That said, I guess we could talk about like how Comcast almost bought Fox, and how that could have been a whole different timeline.
Yeah,
that's covered in the book.
Yeah,
they actually offered more money than Disney did.
Yeah, and like when Disney ended up acquiring Fox, like it was like this weird moment where it was like, oh, like Iger normally has his lunches with Rupert Murdoch. That's so weird. Too, that's pretty weird. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, maybe that's just a thing people like that do. I don't know. I guess
they go to the same conventions together, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Yeah. But like, yeah, and then.
Oh, are you running for president today? Oh, not today.
So I guess you just kind of, the better you just like get along with people, like, I don't know, good opportunities can happen, and that ended up becoming a big scaling thing for the company. Like ability for the company to scale up and become like the Disney it is today, where it's like a mega corporation, mega corporate entertainment company.
Yeah.
Mega entertainment corporation, I guess.
Yeah.
But like maybe even before that was Pixar.
Yeah.
Because that was their first acquisition that was like supposed to.
And they'll have to all the other ones. It was the domino effect. It was the first thing done by Iger, and it wouldn't have been done by Eisner.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like his big like move. Like Iger's a very dynamic CEO where he makes big plays. Like he started with Twin Peaks when he was at ABC Programming. He didn't even know how to run ABC Programming, but after he acquired Twin Peaks, he's like, okay, I'm starting to understand. Like,
and people didn't believe in Twin Peaks, but he believed in it.
Yeah, and then like, so he was like, okay, I'm gonna do a similar play again at Disney. I'm gonna acquire Pixar. Like, if they're out competing us, then we're gonna acquire them.
He was noticing in the I don't know if it was in the book, but he noticed in the international theme parks, like people were going to the Pixar things, like Toy Story.
Oh, interesting.
And
yeah, there's already some agreements with Pixar and stuff.
Yeah, but they had a whole deal with, yeah.
But like, yeah, they want to inject more creative energy into the company and like bring it back to like the animations and the movies and stuff like that, because that drives all the other segments of the company, like products, theme parks, all that. So that involved acquiring like the talent there and their abilities there, and then also developing a partnership with Steve Jobs, also, who they said would become a big friend of Iger at the time, and like just like they would influence each other in like lots of different ways, and up until Steve Jobs' passing, and it was actually quite a poignant moment between Steve Jobs and Iger when like Steve Jobs like there's a moment where like they're just about to acquire Pixar, and like Steve Jobs has this big reveal as to, maybe I won't even say it. He has a big reveal to Iger, and I don't know, you can guess what it is maybe, and then it's like a poignant moment, and it sort of sets the tone of their friendship for the rest of their time together.
It was Steve Jobs, I think, and then the Jobs family after he passed away was like the majority shareholder or something, like after that Pixar acquisition.
Yeah, and it's
like I heard like as a Disney employee, like the execs talked to me and they said they might spend a lot of money on Pixar, but they thought it was worth it.
Yeah, you're not just acquiring like the assets; it's also like the creative talent, the management, the energy, the processes. Like, you know, it's not just a dollar amount that you can crunch it down to. Like, but that being said, like they were trying to do that for stuff like Marvel and Star Wars and whatnot.
And Fox, which is the most expensive one.
Fox,
that said, the execs probably can't say anything bad about Iger in front of me, so like maybe there's that too. But like, I don't know, it looks like it was worth it. As the company grew,
Yeah, and then like
we're talking about Ed Catmull and John Lasseter.
Yeah, I'll just highlight another thing about like how to reemphasize this, like with Pixar, was that when how Iger handled the situation with Steve Jobs, like created this long-lasting professional relationship and friendship, and like just handling that situation with such sensitivity produced like something of such value that, like, you know, you couldn't put into like quantifiable value. Like
maybe that's
you couldn't buy that, you know.
Maybe that's what he mentions that in the book. Yes, I remember.
So that's why people say like, oh, this is like a good book for him to write as like a corporate leader, is to like say like as a person in a leadership role, you know, having emotional skills and soft skills and emotional intelligence.
Soft skills are very important.
And having
they teach you that in business school,
and having empathy, you know, like that's really important. Person with high degree of ethics. But you know, you have a lot of criticisms of certain decisions and whatnot.
Certain ethical decisions,
for sure. I think I would pretty much agree with those.
Yeah.
There's definitely things worthy of criticizing as well.
That said, like I guess it did end up acquiring a lot of businesses because like he was able to talk to these big CEOs and like not make them feel offended or anything.
Yeah. So yeah, Yeah, so yeah, that did come in handy with Murdoch too.
Yeah.
And like, it was like, yeah, like, could you imagine like a lot of people we know making a deal with someone like that, and like creating like something of value from that kind of situation? Like, it's hard to imagine, right? Kind of unthinkable.
Hames and Bond.
Yeah, you know.
And I guess Hames and Bond and Eisner also.
Yeah. So that's Power Rangers. Is Power Rangers also in Iger's tenure, or like?
That was Eisner's tenure.
That's Eisner. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm pretty sure Iger was the one who sold it to Hames and Bond actually. So there is that. Yeah. It might have been a little bit in Iger's tenure. Yeah. They still had Power Rangers in the parks at the beginning of Iger's tenure.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Let's see.
What's Ed Catmull up to now?
I don't really know. He wrote I think he was the one that wrote the book Creativity Inc.
Oh, cool.
So I think that was him. I heard people like that book. And then John Lasseter, we all know what happened with him afterwards, after Me Too.
That gets covered in the book. It's like a sentence, but like it was addressed.
You have to address it.
And he mentioned like it was problematic for a while.
Yeah. You have to address it.
Like there was hugs and then whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and like you can't really recover from something like that. There's not really like, I don't think there's like a restorative justice process for like people in positions of that kind of power.
Yeah.
Like maybe if it's like a minor felon or something in like a small community that's like has no impact and is just like trying to get a small job at a small business and just like fade into obscurity or something, that might be one thing. But like if you're in a position of power like that, you really don't have like any way of like, I don't know, recovering from a big public blowout like that, other than like resting on your riches and stuff like that. And
he's not in the public anymore. Yeah.
So, but he's probably pretty wealthy. But like,
I haven't seen him on TMZ or anything, so it's pretty interesting.
But like, you lose that like public image, and like once people see you in public, you have no right to your privacy or whatever, like that kind of thing. So there's that side of things.
Yeah, that's a pretty big punishment. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we live in a publicly. It was because like there was no recourse for a lot of people that like using like public displays of public airings of like grievances is like there's no punitive form of punishment from the criminal justice system.
There's a lot of grievances that aren't being released.
Yeah, that's too, because there's so much power. So the power dynamic really. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole topic in itself, and I feel like I'm getting myself in hot water here by saying too much. Something had to happen. So obviously what he did was wrong, and something had to happen. Marvel. I don't know. Marvel was like obviously like a huge franchise. They did an interesting. My most interesting perspective on it was like how they cracked down the numbers. They crunched the numbers for that because like they were going to acquire it, and then they had to figure out, okay, what would be a good price to pay for this? Because like there are Marvel movies underway, there are Marvel like theme parks potentially. There's Marvel products, so we have to think what would be a good price tag to actually acquire these rights. And like based on what's existing, what's not existing, what we can get out of this. Of course, it like blew up and like became this huge like, worth tens of billions.
It's the box office now.
And now it is, well, for a while. Maybe now in the past like 2-3 years, it's not as much.
But, there's no box office in the last 2-3 years.
Yeah. No? But before that, like for a good like 10 years, it was like pretty much driving not only Disney, but the whole economy and stuff like that. So,
entire countries.
So like, just tens of billions of dollars based on this one.
All people will talk about is Marvel. All of YouTube would just talk about Marvel all the time.
I'm sure they were very, very happy with how it turned out. But like at the time, like it's probably pretty hard to figure out like what would be a worthwhile payment. Like
it was in the beginning, and there was only like 2-3 movies at the time.
So yeah, and then like They kind of let you fill in the blanks, but they're like, and at the end he says like, we got to figure out something to do with this that's like really bold and like new, and like why not do Black Panther as a movie and like have like great black American.
That was the main thing I remember from it, and you mentioned it. I was like, he was like, yeah, that was the Twin Peaks of Marvel for him.
Yeah, and he talks about it in the book, and he says he's very proud of it, and he has a whole letter he addresses to his employees and all that.
He was very proud of Captain Marvel also.
Very proud of Captain Marvel as well. So, yeah. I mean, people said it couldn't be done in theaters. They did it in theaters. He sends a whole letter to his company, so it's very exciting for him.
That said, there's no more Captain Marvel films, and even though the Acolyte was a success, like they're not continuing with that series despite its cliffhanger.
I mean, it's very. I feel like the Disney company is in a very different position now. With like instead of
the world's in a different position now, I guess.
The world's in a different position now. Now, like the little kids are running the kindergarten or whatever, like a little bit.
Also, yeah, they're still probably in danger of a lot of hostile takeovers now compared to like before.
That literally almost
happened.
Happened.
Like they're a ridiculously expensive and powerful company.
Yeah, that literally almost happened recently, right? Like there was a private equity investor that wanted to like hostily take over Disney and probably like sell it part and parcel up for like cash or whatever. But like because of like the
I think the main thing was like they wanted to sell like ESPN, which wasn't profitable.
But
would made been approved.
Yeah, but they gotta. Because they built such good relationships with people like George Lucas and Vereen Powell Jobs and whatnot, like they were able to get enough shareholders to prevent the hostile takeover. Yeah. That would have been a very, very different timeline if that happened, you know?
I mean...
That was recent.
I still would have preferred if Comcast had bought Fox. Yeah. Just because like I felt like Disney is way too powerful for the one industry, yeah.
That's the Disney acquisition of Fox. I meant like the private equity investor taking over Disney.
Yeah, no, I mean like Comcast having bought Fox, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We're talking about... Okay, yeah, gotcha. And then after Marvel, there was the Star Wars acquisition, the Lucasfilm acquisition, and yeah, they had like an ongoing relationship since like ABC programming, because like... Yeah, like I think that like after Twin Peaks, like he got the attention of Spielberg and Lucas.
And I think Pixar was also part of partially like it was originally a Lucas Skywalker Ranch brand and stuff.
Yeah, Pixar was under ILM before.
Yeah,
and also Pixar was also under Steve Jobs, of course.
Yeah,
and so it's all tying together.
Yeah,
and then let me see, Lucasfilm. And then, like, George Lucas had an ongoing relationship with Bob Iger because of Young Indie.
I remember that. I was going to say that. I just remember that right now, yeah.
So, yeah.
Because that was on ABC way back in the day.
So, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, the series didn't do well, but, like, I think George Lucas still appreciated the gesture.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And then...
ABC didn't do well.
But then George Lucas was really hesitating in selling Star Wars and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a whole process, but eventually, like, they were able to convince him. But, like, the way he handled it involved a lot of, like, trying to understand his perspective and, like, getting him to open up about, like, what this franchise meant to him as a person and stuff. And, like, you know, building that relationship and building that rapport with him. Yeah. And then, like, George Lucas still had a little bit of bitter feelings afterwards because of like how they handled the script changes to like what he originally pitched as the script for the new movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But they eventually seem to have made things up afterwards.
Yeah. As
one does.
Yeah.
And again, there's that like emphasis on like having empathy as a leader and dealing with people, because like ultimately all these things are made of people. They're not just made of dollars. Yeah. They're made of people. And you also
entertainment is a collaborative process.
Yeah.
Mudita PRpHD, pure PhD over here.
Yeah. And like it's about understanding each other, treating people as humans, and understanding that like, creative people have all kinds of motivations and have all different kinds of I don't know, like you have to
even in the workplace, you know, there's the people who like want to just get their paycheck. There's the people who want to work hard and get a higher position or whatever.
Yeah, and like when you're working with creative people, also like it's also an additional layer of like they have their creative motivations behind things too. That was important during Twin Peaks, and he learned lessons from the mistakes there.
Yeah.
and like messing with the process too much and like not knowing when to not mess with it enough.
And like there was I forgot who changed the time slot, but like that was a big difference for that too. Like it went to like Saturday, and then nobody watched it.
Yeah.
And like they already found out like, oh wait, no, that was different. But like there's a lot of problems. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so and that's another lesson for streaming is like remember how important the scheduling is for your streams. Like
make sure your audience can watch your streams.
Yeah, you can kill your stream, you can kill your programming.
If you stream like 4 a.m. and all your audience is in the U.S. or something.
Yeah, or if your audience is in the UK or something, and like you're in you have the time zone difference is like making it an inconvenient time.
And you're like a British fiend or whatever streamer.
Yeah, I don't know what it would be. It's not. Yeah.
I guess it wouldn't be Doctor Who. Maybe if it was like Markham and Wise Twitch streamer.
Yeah.
You couldn't watch it in the UK time zone or something.
Sometimes I've heard of like Twitch streamers in like Asia and stuff trying to target their stream times to target a US audience when they speak English during their streams and stuff. So even though like it's like a weird time of day for them where they are, at least they can get some of the US audience. So I don't know, that's something to consider. Yeah. And also international companies with employees in different time zones is important. I don't know, maybe this is a time zone thing in general. Let's see. So we talked about Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Fox, Disney Plus was a big project.
So I can talk a little bit about this. Originally, the technology they used, according to Iger, was the technology they used from like sports apps, like the MLB app, where they would show live streams of like games and like they'd have like a documentary or like highlights and other stuff on the app too. And they would use the same technology for Disney Plus. I guess he got that experience from like ESPN or something.
Right, and they knew they had to go digital somehow. Yeah. So they were looking for an angle.
It's even in the title of the chapter.
Right.
If you don't innovate, something.
Yeah, and like handling that process for your employees during a big part of time period of change. Also, like while cannibalizing your existing channels,
like the theatrical releases.
Like if you're showing it in the streaming app, less people are gonna watch it in theaters. Less people are gonna watch it in like TV and network TV and stuff like that. So like that's a really tough process. You have to continuously communicate with your teams and like keep open lines of channels and like make sure everybody navigates it clearly and effectively. Clear communication about like what your goals are, why you're doing it, how you're going to get there, acknowledging that there's going to be problems, and communicates to your employees that like you know what you're doing, why these things are going to be problematic, but like why they have to happen at the same time. That's a sign of like really strong leadership, is like knowing how to handle all that.
He has this whole thing at the end of the book where he says like how to become a good leader.
Yeah. And he like summarizes all the key points and stuff. So I'm like just repeating a lot of these key points that he says at the end too.
They don't address like the fallout with Scarlett Johansson. I don't know if there's Bob Chapek and not Iger, but like they don't talk about like people being upset like the residuals from like the apps didn't go over. Oh, actually that's not fair because the book was released in 2019, so a lot of that stuff didn't apply yet.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah. And then maybe a lot of this also was convenient that they released this book in 2019 before a lot of this stuff started getting all messy
like,
and stuff.
Like,
let's get this book now.
Like, I didn't know anything about Disney Plus. It was barely an app back then, you know.
Yeah, and now like Disney's getting more and more like losing their way, and like they're having some stumblings here and there and stuff. Kind of like in a tough spot with like a lot of their franchises, managing the empire. He was like a very dynamic leader about making bold plays to grow the empire. Yeah. Now it's like, how do we manage this big empire now after it's already grown?
I think they're doing some stuff like the Fox releases finally, which is helping, like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and Alien Romulus.
Right. It's good that they've diversified so much that like now they have to compete with themselves. So like now they have to like not counter program.
Now they got to figure out like what to release in theaters and what to release in Disney Plus. They could probably do a whole bunch of films just in Disney Plus and not release them in the theaters.
Yeah, and and now they have all these channels to work with. Yeah, it's fascinating. They start with acquiring ABC, then they have all these franchises and movies that they built up, all these movie franchises. Now they have Disney Plus that they've built up.
Which is sort of replacing Disney Channel and ABC.
Yeah, exactly. So you've really seen this kind of full arc of this company under this one guy's tenure, and like he's back again too. They can't get him out of there, so they brought him back again.
They pulled me back in.
Just when I try to get out, they pulled me back in. Just when I try to get out, they pull me back in. There we go. I was fishing for it. I was wondering if you were going to pick up on it or not.
I didn't pick up on it. Right. It's good to have fun. Yeah.
All right. So, and then, of course, there's like Me Too with John Lasseter, and also like the canceling of Roseanne. Also,
I actually forgot about that part of the book. Probably
that was
so many acquisitions happening.
It was such an awkward part of the book too. But like I don't know. Like,
when he was on ABC as like a exec or whatever, not CEO. Like Roseanne was on at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and like she's talking about like people of color and stuff like that, and like. Also, it was like the #1 show at the time, and like a lot of people wouldn't necessarily make his decision like so quickly. But he said like he was very decisive about it. He's like within like a day, like it just got decided right away.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. I remember.
It's like no, we're not discussing this. There's no room for reinterpretation. The internet is a real place.
Yeah.
Just don't say things like this on Twitter. Also, he had multiple conversations with her about like you gotta clean up this act on Twitter if you're gonna continue working with us, and
she had worked with her. So, did he mention Home Improvement also? Maybe.
Yeah,
but like he had previous business partnerships through like ABC and the original Roseanne also.
Right. They go way back to the original ABC, and so she was part of the programming there. Yeah. They brought her up more. They brought up her story more later on when she was getting canceled, but like they did tie it back to like his previous experiences. But I mean like that's a fascinating example of like being decisive. Like we have to take an ethical stand on this. If we hem and haw on this, people are gonna see our hesitation. If we say a half-hearted statement here, like, "Oh, we deeply regret this," and like you don't do anything, like we're gonna be like notice that. He's like,
we deeply regret this, but we're gonna keep her hired.
We're gonna keep her hired.
The show on the air, and
we will
she's
keep
gonna
still
stay on Twitter,
and that's the exact thing that people get sick of. They're like, this is corporate mumbo jumbo that's like dodging the whole problem. He's like, we're not gonna do that this time. So that's like a fascinating example of leadership.
It's very interesting because like when you have to manage a Discord or be a community manager, you gotta make a call.
Yeah,
some people just don't do anything. Yeah.
These are lessons for like anybody at any level of leadership. About like maybe we could talk about like lessons to take away for being a leader in a community. And like we're at 40 minutes on this part, so leadership skill lessons.
Yeah. I probably should get a photo of like that part of the book. I don't know.
Yeah, I took a bunch of screenshots on my phone. But I think we kind of already went over a bunch of them. So I guess there's like be decisive, do the right thing, or like even more so, people are looking.
People are looking
to you to do the right thing.
I think every job I've been into, just because I've been in customer service, like people are looking. People are looking.
And they're like, are you gonna do it or not? Like, what are you gonna do here? Like,
are you just gonna not embarrass yourself, Mr. Simpson or whatever?
You're just gonna cover your ass and like nobody's gonna like, oh yeah, this wasn't my fault. Like I can't blame that. Like you're in charge. You're the leader here. Like you're not making a call here. You got to make a tough call, and and like also maintaining your composure. In tough circumstances.
Yeah, I guess he's like never angry, even when he makes like he's being punitive or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He'd be like, I believe that person did a wrong thing. I'm doing the right action to correct this.
And then also like when it was in The Hook where he's dealing with Shanghai Disneyland, he's like, you know what, I gotta put on a good show. I can't have a good show of face here.
I think that's one of the Disney what do you call it?
The corporate
show, yeah.
Disney show.
That's one of the main 4 elements of whatever Disney, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess
Safety, show, and whatever.
That's also true in show business too. Like if you're on a theater, you're doing a theatrical production, and you hear of like some devastating news, like you still have to figure out how to deal with it while like a show's going on or something. Like you're performing Hamilton and like you just heard something, or like you're doing live TV show journalism and you just heard some distressing news or something. You gotta figure out how to proceed and stuff. So, and then also like treat people with empathy. You know, it can pay immensely.
Yeah. I mean, it made Disney billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars, nearly hundreds of billions of dollars.
It's like you can win people in incalculable ways that are more important than money, I should say.
Yeah. And money helps too.
Although the money does help.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's kind of a lesson that Warren Buffett has at some point. Is like he develops so much goodwill with like how people invest and believe in his character as an investor and stuff that like sometimes when he like makes a judgment call and like people are like, you know, I don't know exactly what's happening, but Warren's saying that he's doing this, and like people are throwing their weight behind him. So I believe in him. And, like, he wouldn't do the wrong thing here. We got to make the right call. So, like, you know, building trust with people, like, always making the right decision. Once you lose trust from people from a terrible decision, it's over. Like, people can never quite trust you the same way again. You can slowly build it back up, but it's never going to be quite the same. Yeah. So, like, it's really tough to build trust, you know. Trust is very important. It is a hard thing to build and an easy thing to lose. I mean that's ultimately what it comes down to. Yeah. And then let's see what else is there. I mean I don't know, like be sensitive to creative people's needs. I don't know, like I mean like part of me was like thinking about the scheduling thing with like Twin Peaks also. Yeah.
The scheduling thing wasn't the worst thing. The worst thing was like, I actually don't remember this in the book, but you mentioned like telling David Lynch to reveal who the killer was.
Yeah.
You have to understand your business. Yeah.
Understand your business.
People want to know when the ratings are dying and
you know
you're sweeping floors and what's going on in the show, man. No one understands what's going on.
Yeah, you have to understand your business. Trust your creative leadership. Trust your teams. Like that was a big aspect of like them transitioning over to like Bob Iger's leadership from Eisner's was also there was like another team that was like under Eisner that was like interfering with things. You can read more about that in the book, but like like part of the restructuring was like being able to put more faith in like the creative leadership's team because like there's too much interference and stuff. So they felt more free to like, oh, we can actually do things now instead.
I remember that from like Yellow Hat Marketing. Like, if you don't want us to do it, like, why didn't you do it yourself as opposed to paying us?
Oh, interesting, huh? Yeah, if you're micromanaging everything, like, you know.
do it. Like, why did you pay us to do it for you?
Yeah, I think that was something Steve Jobs also learned, is that, like, he was a pretty smart guy, and sometimes he could be really micromanaging sometimes. Sometimes they would literally tell him, okay, why don't you do it? And they would be like, okay, we're going to give you an interface for you to do it yourself. And then he does it, and it works. But, like, sometimes he was like, he had to learn to, like, let go of the reins and be like, okay, even if I do have an idea of how to do things, sometimes it's up to them to figure it out on their own, too. So he has to let go of the reins.
I guess that was an Iger and...
it's not scalable.
That's an Iger and Jobs thing.
Yeah.
That helped Disney out.
Yeah, so trust your teams to make them feel empowered. You know,
also, you're paying them.
You're paying them.
You're paying them. Why are you doing it?
Yeah, you're stressing yourself out more. Let's see what else. And I don't know.
Covered by everything, yeah.
Yeah, don't build friendships.
I think this part of the book is like 3 pages long.
Yeah. These are all the key things, you know. And so key lessons from Ride of a Lifetime by Bob Iger.
Yeah.
Be decisive. People are looking to you to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Maintaining your composure in tough circumstances has its rewards. Treat people with empathy. You can win people in incalculable ways, which are more important than money, although the money does help. Trust is a hard thing to build and an easy thing to lose. Be sensitive to creative people's needs. Understand your business inside and out so you know what you're talking about when you're dealing with people. And trust your teams to make them feel empowered. Otherwise, what are you paying them for?
Yeah.
Okay.
This sort of reminds me both of like business goals in addition to like when we went to church and they're like, these are like words to live by to make sure you have a good life or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it also and it also helps like church to have a little story behind the little lessons, so you know the context behind why these things mattered and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So each of these has like different circumstances, like in his life where these things applied. So like justice is a hard thing to build, easy thing to lose. That applied to like when like he's like building trust with like the Jobs family or with George Lucas and stuff like that. Yeah. And being sensitive to creative people's needs, that applied to like Twin Peaks and David Lynch and all that. Yeah. And like also his relationship with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg even, and like tons of stuff like that.
Creator of Black Panther or the director,
yeah. And like maybe my biggest thing here is treating people with empathy is like super important. No matter what kind of leadership you're in a big company, in a small organization, as an individual, just dealing with people in general, like it's I don't know, like it's just like yeah, it's just essential for, I don't know, being a decent human being in general is even beyond, like, you'd be surprised how many people have never been treated with faith and trust. That, like, if you just treat them with that, and, like, genuinely mean it, then they'll, like, they're willing to give you a lot when you give them that. So, yeah. Okay. But, of course, be careful with that because sometimes you can put yourself in a tough spot. All right. Anyway, I guess that's a pretty good summary of this book.
Good conversation about the book too.
Good conversation about the book. I think we actually ended up being very, very comprehensive about it.
Yeah.
There's tons more details in the book itself, but if you want this as a book summary, you can listen to this podcast.
Read direct sources. Don't just do hearsay.
Read the direct sources. It's much
First
better.
person.
It's much better. And the book's pretty short. I highly recommend it.
It feels very short, yeah.
I will try to link a bookshop link for a affiliate link. I would get a referral bonus, and we collect commissions from that. Or you could buy it yourself, or you could take it from the library. I don't
Or you could not buy it.
Or you could not buy it, and you could just enjoy the book summary too. Yeah. If you like this, and you want to support and you want to buy a book, feel free to use the bookshop link, and it helps the stream. All right, helps the podcast. All right, hope you had a good time, and we will see you next time with our next thing with Movies with Mudita and PRpHD. Until
we might be doing like a Discord for like Wings of Power or something.
Yeah, follow us on Discord, and until then, happy watching. All right, take care. Support your local artists and creators, and happy watching. All right, take care. Peace.